Hello, and thank you for joining us for MADD's Taiwan on for Safety event. I am Roderick Howard, and I am the Regional Executive Director for the Mid-Atlantic region, a region of the national organization. I am proud to introduce Lisa Black. Lisa Black came to us in 2016 after a drunk driver hit her head on. They feared she would never walk again, yet again, she came to Walk Like MADD event in 2016. After a long recovery, she was able to start her journey back in running. She has been with us ever since as a volunteer and a generous donor. Please help me in welcoming our Mistress of Ceremonies for today, Lisa Black.
That was very kind. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our Taiwan on for Safety kickoff today. We're here today because some of the most dangerous days on our nation's roadways are between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. That is why every holiday season since 1986, MADD has encouraged us all to Taiwan on for safety, asking us to display these ribbons. I have the ribbons here, and the magnets in a visible location on our vehicles to remind everyone if your plans include alcohol or drugs, please plan ahead, designate a non-drinking driver, use a ride share or public transportation, and ensure your family and friends that everyone has a safe ride home this holiday season. We would like to thank our national sponsor, Waymo, and our local sponsor, Richmond Ford. Thank you so much for making this event possible today. Now it is my honor to introduce Brian Moran, Virginia's Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. Secretary Moran was appointed by Governor McAuliffe as Virginia's first Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security in January 2014, and he was reappointed by Governor Northam in January 2018. Prior to his appointment, Secretary Moran served as a longtime prosecutor for Arlington County and for 13 years as a House of Delegates member, during which time he was a leader in championing and sponsoring drunk driving legislation in Virginia. In 2015, he was awarded the President's Award by the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police and was recently elected to the Executive Committee of the Governor's Homeland Security Advisors Council. Thank you for joining us, Secretary Moran.
Very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm wondering how Chief English beat me here.
I have lights.
And I actually beat Colonel Settle for the Virginia State Police. So he's going to come in here wondering how I beat him here. But I was observing the speed limit right through Henrico County.
Like you said.
But we were at the Valor Awards. And what an event. What an event. I mean, it just makes your heart, makes you so proud and grateful for our law enforcement and first responders. The life and death situations that were described this morning started at 7:30. We had 19 presentations, 19 events that described, is that the Hanover? Yeah, well, you were mentioned numerous times. You were also mentioned. It had 2020 because of the COVID pandemic, so it was 2 years combined, and it really was. It was just, the stories were inspiring, and I didn't want to miss a word of it, and so I stayed until the end, so I just made it here. But this event is critically important as well. Lisa kindly mentioned some of my background. I was a prosecutor for 7 years in Arlington County, and Lisa, I was so frustrated by drunk driving cases. At that time, now I go back a few years, they were a misdemeanor, regardless of how many drunk driving convictions you would incur, multiple. And the most we could do was sentence them to 12 months in jail And on a misdemeanor, you do 50% of the time. So they'd do 6 months, which is a significant amount of time. But by the 10th DUI, you should have, get your lesson. And so I ran for the House of Delegates. And one of my first pieces of legislation I submitted was a felony drunk driving law to make it a felony that on a third or subsequent drunk driving, that's enough. I mean, frankly, 2's enough, 1's too many. But by the third time, enough's enough, and it's time you're going to be treated as a serious criminal, as a felon, and you're going to be facing serious jail and even prison time, up to 5 years the first and then beyond. And that was a bipartisan piece of legislation, and it currently it stays on the books of Virginia, and I'm very, 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 very proud of that legislation. And so, so getting tough on drunk driving, and that was back too long ago that I'd like to mention, but we need to, that is part of it. I mean, there's the carrot and the stick, right? I mean, you need the stick and say, we're not going to tolerate this any longer, but you also need the carrots. You need the education. And that's why we assemble here this morning to draw the attention of our media friends and others to get the word out that this is such a preventable offense that you don't need to drink and drive. Around the holidays, often the parties and so forth that we want to engage with our friends, particularly after months and months and even years of COVID, it's nice to get out and spend time with your friends. And of course, many of us will imbibe. And I also, as Secretary of Public Safety, I also have the ABC that reports to me. So, they're doing pretty well, the ABC. But we do it safely. And just as you described, use alternative methods for driving. You don't need to drive. Use a designated driver. Uber. In the city, you certainly have a variety of an alternative method. So I'm joining MADD. And let me, lastly, in addition to all these wonderful law enforcement and first responders, it's so critically important to have an issue of this magnitude, to have an advocacy group. MADD, the work that MADD has done over the years has been critically important to, one, establish those get tough on this crime laws, but two, just the advocacy around this issue, to bring, frankly, victims to the table. Your voices are so compelling to these discussions around these critical issues. And so, MADD's just done a phenomenal job, and those who support MADD, Ford here doing this, really is a public-private partnership. The entire community has a lot at stake, and it's wonderful that you're here. I did drive up in a Traverse. But I will note, I've signed off on a contract for Ford Explorers for the Virginia State Police. So it's a very large contract. So
we're going to have it towed in here.
I was afraid that I'm going to keep an eye on it.
Chief and I are working on that.
But thank you to Ford and to all the supporters of MADD and all of the wonderful work that they do. So I really am just honored to be able to participate in this event and give thanks to MADD, give thanks to these wonderful heroes who are assembled behind me. And let's have a great holiday season, but let's be safe while we enjoy the holidays with our friends and family. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Moran. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. Okay, our next honored guest is Henrico Police Chief Eric English. And Chief English was sworn in as Henrico County's Chief of Police in September 2020. Prior to joining Henrico, he served with the City of Richmond Police Department from 1989 to 2018, rising through the ranks to become the Deputy Chief of Support and Business Services in 2016. Before coming to Henrico, he served as the Chief of Police for the City of Harrisonburg. Chief English is a graduate of the Senior Management Institute for Police at Boston University and is a certified law enforcement instructor. He is a member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police, and is president of the Central Virginia chapter of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Thank you for joining us, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to share something here really
really briefly here with you. In 2021, in Henrico County alone, we have lost 10 individuals to alcohol or drug-related fatalities. And this represents almost a third of our crashes in total deaths in Henrico County. And even though our numbers are slightly down in alcohol-related incidents, this is still too many lives that have been lost, especially for something that's so preventable. Our officers, along with our other local, state, and state partners, are here day in and day out trying to remove impaired drivers from our roadways. Our arrest numbers are a little bit less than in past years, which can be seen as something that's good, but still, we're having over 600 impaired driving arrests is way too many. We are seeing an increase in drug-related arrests while operating a vehicle, although alcohol remains the main culprit. Even with the pandemic, Henrico County has seen our numbers of impaired driving incidents go down from 288 crashes in 2019, 265 in 2020, and 215 in 2021. This shows that our officers are being proactive in educational and enforcement actions to prevent injury or death amongst our roadways. However, it takes a collaborative effort from everyone. Our partners with MADD help us with providing education to the public. AAA helps us with sending out those messages, and especially our partners at the DMV Highway Safety Office. They assist us in all facets of trying to save lives. Join us to please spread the word to not drive while impaired, or it could be you who gets that knock on the door with very bad news. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief English. Thank you. And we're so grateful today that our next speaker is here with us today as we celebrate the 35th anniversary of Taiwan On for Safety initiative. He represents 25 of those years here in Virginia. Carter Hill has been the volunteer behind MADD Virginia for 25 years. In that time, he has done every volunteer job that one can do. He has served as state chair of MADD Virginia, as a victim advocate providing support and going to court with victims. He set up victim impact panels across Virginia. He attends sobriety checkpoints. He serves as a victim speaker, telling his story from one end of Virginia to the other. And he is a generous donor to Walk Like MADD and the MADD Law Enforcement Awards. If you ask many of our sponsors, he's the reason they support us. Thank you for joining us, Carter.
Thank you, Lisa. I just want to take a few minutes to share something with you that is dear to my heart, my family's heart. December 6, 1976 was probably one of the happiest days of my life when I went to pick up my son, St. Mary's Hospital, and bring him home. And he was my firstborn, my first child. Life went on for many years, and 20 years later became the worst day of my life when he was involved in a drunk driving crash. I'll never forget the day it happened. It's almost like it was yesterday, and you know, the older you get, it's like, what happened to the time? I can remember the day, the night, when 2 police officers from Henrico County came to my front door, knocked on my front door, and told me that my son had been killed in a drunk driving crash. Ever since then, I always think, you know, that's probably one, and they'll probably agree with me, it's probably one of the hardest things that police officers have to do. After that, I had to go tell my mom that her grandson had been killed. I mean, that was hard enough for me, and you know, it's just a really bad situation for a family to go through. What happened was, I came home from work and I saw my son, his best friend, working on a car in my garage. And before I went in the house, I went and talked to him, and I said, what y'all going to do tonight? And they said, well, they were both living together and had rented an apartment. They said they were going to go get some supper, go home, go to bed, and they had to get up, go to work early the next morning. So they both went home, phone rang as one of their friends. They were down at a party and said, come on down for a little while. So They went to the party. There was a lot of drinking there, and my son drove his car down there. He hadn't drank anything until he got to the party. He felt like he had drank too much, and so he asked his best friend if he was okay to drive. That was probably one of the biggest mistakes he ever made his whole entire life, and I've known people that have gone through this same thing, to where everybody looks around and says, well, you drank less than I did. Maybe you should drive. Thinking about the consequences of maybe getting pulled over by the police and being arrested, never thinking about what happens when you have a crash and somebody's either injured or killed. Anyway, the young man decided he would drive. They left the party. They got down the road a little ways, and for no reason or rhyme, the boy blacked out and hit a tree on my son's side. It ejected him straight through the front windshield into a big field. And you know, when I say this and when I heard this story originally, I'm thinking to myself, that car must have been going 100 and some miles an hour. That car was only going like about 56 miles an hour when all this massive damage happened. The door on my son's car on the right side that hit the tree flipped over the car and landed in the road. And the young man that was driving got thrown into the hatchback. Well, somebody called the police, and the first responder that got there, police officer, saw the young man and thought that he had no pulse, so he figured that he was, was deceased. So they didn't want another car to come around on a curve. So they were doing traffic control, and when he came back, he testified that he did feel a pulse on a young man. They called the ambulance and to come and assist him. And about that time, some other teens, young people came from the party, and they noticed that my son wasn't anywhere to be found. And they said, there was another boy in that car. So they said, well, we'll look around a little bit. And that's when they found my son. He had got thrown right through that windshield, and he was killed instantly when he went through that windshield. It was probably one of the worst things that ever happened to my family. A lot of things happen. We read a lot of bad things in the newspaper, and we feel sorry for all those people. But when it happens to you, you just can't figure out. I always thought, and I guess I was kind of naive, that bad things happen to everybody else. Well, that's not true at all. It can happen to anybody. That's why we got this season coming up. There's going to be a lot of parties. There's going to be a lot of drinking. We need to make sure that if we do have somebody at our house drinking, that they're aware that there's other ways, just like Mr. Moran said, that get home, and we don't need to drive. It's bad enough if you're lucky enough to get stopped by the police and get a DUI, but if your family has to be notified that a loved one's been killed, it will be a pain for everybody. And I lost my son. The family of the driver, the young man went to jail for 2 years. Now he's got a felony on his, on his record, and he struggles all the time with the fact that he was instrumental in my son's death. So nobody wants to live with that. The meanest guy in the world does not ever want to be responsible for his best friend's death or anyone's loved one's death. So again, each one teach one, and each one reach one, not to drink and drive. It's not worth it. There is no way that it's worth it, especially with the transportation that we have out here nowadays. Thank you so very much, and everybody have a safe and blessed holiday.
Carter, we're not going to let you get away. We thank you for sharing that story. I know after these years it's still difficult, and I think everybody appreciates the fact that you're willing to share it and learns from it, and hearing something of that nature really brings it home. So we all have family of our own, and can't imagine what you went through. But the point is, you have honored your son's life by 25 years of dedication to this cause. You think of how many lives you've saved,
Well, hopefully I'll live another 25, so I can keep
Well,
going.
Well, we'll find another plaque for you, 25. We'll go 25. So this is just halftime. Halftime. You got to
Okay.
finish through the fourth quarter, run through. But MADD has presented you a plaque, and if you wouldn't mind, I'll just read it. It's MADD, Virginia. No more victims. Presented to Carter Hill in appreciation for 25 years of unwavering guidance and support in your vision and commitment to ending impaired driving in Virginia. You are being honored with love and gratitude by MADD, Virginia. It's December 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Carter. Thank you so much for all you do for MADD. We can't thank you enough. Thank you. And our last speakers today are our host, the sponsors, and the sponsors of Taiwan On for Safety for over 10 years now. We were talking about that this morning, 10
I
years.
think there's a little change to the agenda, and we've had another special guest show up.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay,
Slowpoke.
okay. Well, I will
Colonel
turn
Settle?
it. I will turn it over to Colonel Settle first. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I really didn't come to speak. I ran a little late, got caught in traffic, an event we were at this morning. I was on the top floor, so it took me a while to get out of the parking deck. But what an extraordinary story, Mr. Hill. On behalf of the state police, and I know I echo this with our partners as well. We'll be out here full force. We're out here full force every day as much as we can. But obviously, this is driving sober is one of our priorities. And we will give that the attention that it needs every day, especially moving through the holidays to make sure that our folks, our citizens traveling in Virginia and through Virginia get to where they need to be safely. So we're looking forward to continue to working forward with our partners, and thank you for giving me the opportunity just to say a few words, but I really just wanted to be here in support of this extraordinary organization, MADD. They set the example and breathe life into what we do, what's important for the citizens of Virginia. So thank you, and I'll step back out of the way and let the more important people talk. So.
Thank you so much, Colonel Settle. Thank you, thank you. And now our last speakers for today, our host and sponsors of Taiwan On for Safety, as I said, for over 10 years now. We were just talking about that this morning, who we appreciate so much, Ron and Janine Cody of Richmond Ford. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. And this is our 10th year. Janine and I and the rest of the Richmond Ford family are very proud to be sponsors again for the Taiwan On for Safety campaign. Richmond Ford Lincoln, Richmond Ford West, and West Point Ford, if you're on the way to the beach, will all have red ribbons available to pick up and display on your vehicle. And I'm also reminded that if you can't stop by and pick up a red ribbon, as Janine's proudly displaying, just take any red ribbon and tie it onto your antenna and signify your support of the Taiwan On for Safety. These symbols are a pledge of your commitment to drive safe and sober and remind other drivers to do the same. We want everybody to enjoy the holiday season and spread the word to drive safe, unimpaired, and return home safely. You know, it's evident from Carter's story and in subsequent years with Lisa talking about what has happened to her family as a result of a impaired driver, that the effects are long-reaching, permanent, and most importantly, there are no do-overs. There are no do-overs. And one bad mistake, and as Carter said, you know, the typical, are you okay to drive? No one hardly ever says they're not okay to drive. They'll seize that opportunity, and that's unfortunate. So utilize Lyft, rideshare, Uber, whomever, and or come by a vehicle, no, and get home safe. I want to also thank all the public safety and law enforcement officials here today and all they do each and every day to protect us. We're extremely grateful. They put their lives on the line every single day to make sure that we can get home safe and enjoy the holiday season. This will conclude today's program. I want to thank everybody for attending, and again, this is such an important event that please tie a red ribbon on your vehicle and signify your support of the Taiwan On for Safety campaign. We appreciate it. Thanks again.